Radio 96.9 FM. Fresh news, smart talk, all day.
The views and opinions of the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the position of the management and staff of Guardian Network.
Good morning and welcome to Guardian Radio AM. Today is Tuesday, August
6th.
You know what the actual date it is, right?
Yes, sir.
August 6th, and it's a little after 11 o'clock in the day. Once again, this is C.A. Newry, and I shall be your host for today. Today, I plan to have an open line Tuesday. It happens when you come after a holiday and a break, to allow the listening audience to bring up topics and conversations that they think is pertinent to be providing commentary about. It's been a long weekend. The newspapers, Guardian newspaper is filled with news that you can read and say, my gosh, I didn't know that was happening, that you have opinions on. But as usual, I have one or two things I wanted to have a discussion on. I want to have a discussion on something that it grinds my gear, right? Because it seems to be continuously happening and nobody's addressing the issue. Right? On this issue, I have two topics I want to talk about today, despite this being an open line Tuesday, right? But one issue I see is a number of citizens, I changed that. Visitors or foreign nationals living in the Bahamas. That's what I want to use. Foreign nationals living in the Bahamas.
So non-citizen residents.
And see, I'm not sure if they're non-citizens, but I know they're definitely foreign. I mean, they're born in a different country, but they're living in the Bahamas for whatever reasons. They could have status. They could become Bahamian citizenship. They could have work permit. I'm not sure, but I know definitely they're not Bahamians, but they are definitely.
So they're not Bahamian by heritage or ancestry, but they're not Bahamian by heritage, but they Bahamian by nationality.
And I'm not sure about that.
Some of them,
maybe.
Yeah.
But definitely they foreign. So I just want to make sure people appreciate the word that these are foreigners living in the Bahamas who seems to have their rights, their constitutional rights being abused. And I'm going to flash it out because I have a story I want Aaron to read into the record so people can understand what I'm talking about. But once upon a time, we had a Japanese fellow here, right? He was arrested because he didn't have no license or identification on him. And he spent...
Was he driving a car?
Well, he was a tourist at the time.
So he was arrested on immigration charges?
No.
For what?
For whatever thing, but he couldn't prove. He said he got robbed. And his IDs were taken away from when he got robbed.
Right.
And he couldn't prove who he was. Right? So he was placed in jail. And about 10 years later, right, someone remembered that he was placed in jail.
Jail or the detention center?
He was in prison, Fox Hill, 10 years. 10 years.
With no charges.
We didn't know who he was, so we said, man, he can't release him out to the public. So we just lock him up.
10 years.
Yeah, he got about $2 million for that, right? There is another African man who was placed in the detention center. This was fairly recent, right? He spent about maybe a year and a half in the detention center for whatever reason, detained. He got about $1 million plus. And there's one or two more persons, but recently, I'm going to read this in the record because it's happening too much, where we just don't care to investigate or to we just free willy-nilly to take someone's freedom, their constitutional right to be free, right? And detain them for a long period of time without no case or no judge or scrutiny as to what happened. We just locked them up and put them away. So, man, we ain't working on you no more.
Is this possibly another instance of people thinking that they have been made an authority versus the authority has been vested in them? And so they just decide they could do what they want as opposed to understanding that they are responsible for enforcing the provisions or ensuring that the provisions of the law are properly enforced?
I do not know what it is, but I know it's a problem because it's happening too frequently. And millions of dollars out of the public purse is being paid out. And there seems to be no procedures, no new policies being put in place to correct it.
Or to prevent it from happening again?
Prevent it from happening again. So somebody is delinquent. Somebody is now, see, it's moved from just being, oh, it was a mistake the first time, to being, it's being purposefully done, purposefully ignored, because we do not view these foreigners. And that's why I made the case that they with foreigners, because these half nationals, foreign men who are living here for whatever reason.
And can I say, even if there's no malfeasance involved, there's a dereliction that exists because you refuse to examine the system and amend it and reform it to be able to prevent this from happening again.
This conversation is to find out who is in charge of this, who is delinquent, who I need to be calling out to say, man, correct this. Because it can't happen again. There's millions of dollars that's being paid out continuously
for these types of breaches
It's
over and
too
over
much.
again. So,
but let's read it. Let's read the case. So the even listening audience who haven't seen the newspaper, the Guardian newspaper for this morning, can know what I'm talking about.
all right, so we're going to read from today's Guardian. Jamaican man wrongfully detained gets $2 million in damages. A Jamaican man who was wrongfully held on remand in prison for nearly 10 years was on Friday awarded $2 million in damages. Matthew Sewell was 18 when he arrived in the Bahamas in June 2006 to visit his father. Days after his arrival, he was arrested for the rape of a minor and spent 2 years on remand until he was given bail in May 2008. He was arrested again in April 2009 on another rape charge and remained in prison until he got bail in August 2013. Both rape complaints were later dismissed. In 2013, Sewell was arrested again, this time for murder and housebreaking. When he appeared in court, the murder charge was dropped because he was incarcerated at the time of the murder.
I ain't gonna comment
Hold
on
on,
this.
hold on.
No, I want you to continue reading because you want to bait me to help me comment that when you people looking for a scapegoat, you say, man, come, usually one of the usual suspects.
I mean, that's
But
what I wasn't baiting you for. I just wanted to read it over. I just wanted to ask you if I could read it over and out loud.
Okay.
When he appeared in court, the murder charge was dropped because he was incarcerated at the time of the murder. However, he pleaded not guilty to the housebreaking charge and remained in prison until that charge was dismissed in March 2014. The court issued 2 discharge certificates to Sewell, but, quote, a police officer took the certificates from him and tore them up, telling him that he will rot in jail, close quotes. Sewell was arrested a month later and transferred to the Carmichael Road Detention Center. In October 2015, a judge granted a writ of habeas corpus. During his trial, Sewell told the court that during his time in prison, he was raped, beaten, bitten by a rat, had to share an 8x8 cell with other prisoners, and defecate in a bucket and or a bread bag. He said he was given limited time outdoors and had to sleep on concrete. He said he was beaten by police, prison officers, prisoners, and Defense Force officers. In an August 2nd, 2024 Supreme Court ruling prepared by retired Justice Ruth Bo Darville, quote, the court was amenable to accepting the stated difficulties that the Attorney General's office had in mounting its defense and complying with the court's direction. Let me read that again. In an August 2nd, 2024 Supreme Court ruling prepared by retired Justice Ruth Bo Darville, it was noted that, quote, the court was amenable to accepting the stated difficulties that the Attorney General's office had in mounting its defense and complying with the court's directions, close quotes. Quote, however, it came to a point where the inability of the defendant's counsel to comply with the court's directions and their failure to even secure a witness statement from one of the other of the defendants left the court no other alternative but to accede to the plaintiff's application to strike out the defense, the ruling said. Quote, of special note for the plaintiff was that the defendants, during during the many delays, never even offered an apology. This no doubt was reflective of the behavior of the servants or agents of the defendants. Close quotes. The ruling said, quote, before his first arrest, the plaintiff was a young 18-year-old of good character, and then he found himself in unfamiliar surroundings facing incredible odds, close quotes. The ruling noted that, quote, the evidence of Mr. Sewell's injuries is incontrovertible, close quotes. Quote, Sewell suffered instances of facial injuries, multiple facial fractures, permanent scarring to the face, leg injuries, and serious short-term food poisoning. Close quotes, it said. Quote, Sewell has also been diagnosed with schizophrenia and post-traumatic stress disorder, all caused by the long incarceration and mistreatment, and which is supported by the reports of Dr. Abel, consultant psychiatrist at the University of the West Indies Hospital at Mona, Jamaica, close quotes. Sewell was awarded interest at 6.25%. He was awarded $173,970 in special damages and $594,666.66 for false imprisonment and assault and battery. He was awarded $378,000 in damages for future care, $148,881.72 for psychiatric and psychological damages, $250,000 for malicious prosecution, $250,000 in exemplary damages, $100,000 in aggravated damages, and $120,000 in damages for breach of Sewell's constitutional rights and vindicatory and compensatory damages. In total, he was awarded $2,011,578.38. Sewell, the plaintiff in the matter, was represented by Fred Smith, KC, Martin Lundy, and Raven Roll. The defendants in the matter were the Attorney General, the Minister of Immigration, the Commissioner of Police, the Superintendent of the Bahamas Department of Correctional Services, the Director of Immigration, and the officer in charge of the Carmichael Road Detention Center. They were represented by King Odirio Sayers and Kingsley Smith. End of article.
First, before you continue, and it's you, caller, give me a couple of seconds, please, caller. I want to commend Fred Smith for his continuous work with these special traumatic cases. He needs to be commended. In fact, he should be honored as a national hero because he takes on cases that no other Bahamian would take on, and he has deemed as a anti-Bahamian, as a person who should be against the state, and only because he has taken on these harsh cases where there's clear abuse, human rights abuse, and I want to commend him. And Bahamians should herald him as a national hero because of what he does, right? I want to also state that these abuses that we see in here happen in countries like Iran, where they just capture you and put you inside some dungeon and you don't hear about it no more. Not in a sophisticated democratic state like the Bahamas. It cannot happen here. But for some reason, we see it has been repeatedly happening in our country. And my concern is, not that it happened, because I say, okay, we developing nation, things happens, right? That it has repeatedly happened and there has been no policy, no procedures implemented to correct it, to stop it from happening again.
Better yet, we don't see anybody being brought before the courts we don't see public notification of disciplinary action. We don't see people being fired. Now, I say, and we don't see it. It could be happening.
But we should know.
Justice must not just be done, it must be seen to be done. I just want to say, while y'all sitting and rub up each other's shoulders talking about a return to idealism, right? Why is it that y'all are not having these conversations, oh learned men, oh learned lawyers who demand that only you could speak about the law? Why are you not talking about it?
We know that from what you read there, but with all of the the damage.
The payout.
The payout.
You know what I
We notice that that's not enough money.
Of course, $2 million is not enough.
No, most of the money is going to go for special care because he's a broken man.
Yes.
Disfigured man, a mentally imbalanced man. For all of that money that we think he got is just for him to get services from the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing to say, well, I benefit. This is my compensatory type money. Just to get services from medical professionals. That's what the money is going to be used.
Producer, let's go to the phone line if you don't mind, Newry. But I also don't see somewhere who's going to pay his lawyers.
We can pay it.
Not me.
No,
Hold on, you mean
from the consolidated?
No.
fund.
You mean the superintendent of the Bahamas
He ain't gonna pay nothing.
Department of Corrections, the minister of immigration.
He ain't gonna pay nothing.
In fact, whoever was the minister of immigration at the time, all of them need to sit down because government is continuous.
They don't even come for their budgets. It doesn't even come for their budget. They don't pack the budget. They don't pack no pension plan. The police officer who tear up the document, his pension plan is not in jeopardy. We can pay for this. Me, you, the citizens, the people who listening, the caller who I'm going to talk to right now is going to pay for it. Not them, you know.
But you know how many cookout we still working on $500 million we need to raise.
Anyway, let's go to the caller. Go ahead, caller. Can you hear us?
Good morning, CA, and good morning, Aaron.
Morning, sir.
CA, you know, Mr. Smith is a millionaire of us, of this government, because the government refuses to carry out the very law that it passes. That's why you see the implication of what this will have on the public's perception of the police now, where you have an officer of the courts tearing up a legal document and telling someone that they will rot in jail. How many other persons can make the same type of allegations?
How many people in Fox Hill now who are in jail now? Foreigners who are inside the Bahamas for whatever reason.
And like you said, at the end of the day, we end up paying for this. Aaron, I was trying to call in just before you break yesterday when 52 called in. Mm-hmm. We passed a mental health law, right, in Parliament, I think, which gives the government the right to remove persons off the street. Has anybody been removed off the street as yet?
To put them where?
We passed an anti-gang law.
Mm-hmm.
Has anyone been taken in and brought before the courts in this law? To me, Parliament is a waste of time. We are paying these people money just for wasting our time. They are passing laws, but the law don't have no teeth. They don't have any desire to carry out these laws. They just want something to do in Parliament, so they pass laws and you know, this is this a real place? Are we serious? Do we have to become a communist country in order to get things running properly? See, Aaron?
I'm concerned.
Is that the type of government that we need? Somebody with an iron fist?
I hear you, caller.
Thank you very much. Newry, let's go to the text, and then I want to actually read from the Tribune, the same article.
Yes. Imagine, Aaron, if this had happened to Sewell in the United States, how much multi-million dollars he was going to get, you think?
Right.
And is $2 million sufficient? Mind you, I don't want to pay the money, you know. And I know it comes out of my pocket, right? $2 million. But when you hear about the atrocity he suffered, he come in here as an 18-year-old boy with no record to leave as a man, disfigured, mentally imbalanced.
Physically disfigured,
you know,
emotionally and psychologically scarred. Scarred
forever, right? The monies that they given him and say that's just for him to be rehabilitated, to survive.
Yeah.
The $2 million ain't doing nothing for him. And then we ain't talking about the lawyer fees, because the lawyer can take
this is the point I wanted to make.
Just take all of that and say, boss, you better go with your $10,000.
What does the court prescribe that the state must pay to his lawyers? Paying all the fees? Did the state have to pay all?
Who knows?
Text line, $2 million for 10 years, boy, that ain't worth it. Good day, Aaron. How is it that when Bahamians are detained unlawfully, they don't get anything? Texter.
News and focus. But I understand the emotion. I understand the raw emotion saying that a number of Bahamians have been detained also.
I have a response. Let's put that question to the Bar Association.
Yes.
Put the question to the Bar Association. Another text, Newry. They should fire all who was involved in the taxpayers paying out millions of dollars. Fred Smith and other human rights lawyers should sue to have HMP closed down for being unfit to house prisoners and as a place for any prison officer to work. Shame. I agree. It is also a horrible experience for prison officers. The text says, did the Japanese guy die in PMH recently? Yes, he did. I just looked it up. The text is saying, I just looked it up. He died at 59. That is very young. Another text, the Red Cross has a mandate to ensure that migrant detainees at the detention center are treated in a humane manner and have not been lost in the system. I'm not certain which independent body is responsible for monitoring persons charged with actual crimes. Another text, great show as usual. I'm sure we have Bahamians in Cuban prisons as well. I'm sure that we do have Bahamians in Cuban prisons. Absolutely. Go to the phone
Let's
line.
go to the phone line. Go ahead, Corey. Can you hear me? Call Gern once. Call Gern twice. Okay. Go ahead,
All right.
Jenny.
So let's read from the Tribune article, $2 million for man beaten and abused in prison. The Supreme Court has awarded a record $2 million in damages to Matthew Sewell, a Jamaican man who endured sexual assault and beatings while being unlawfully detained in a prison and the detention center for nearly a decade. Experiences so damaging that he became schizophrenic and developed post-traumatic stress disorder. Justice Ruth Bo Darville called the government's behavior toward him, quote, reprehensible, close quotes, and emphasized the need to send a serious message with her damages award. Mr. Sewell was 18 when he was first detained. He was falsely imprisoned for 9 years and 9 months. Go to page 5. He was accused in 2006 of raping a 6-year-old girl detained at BDOCS for 2 years before he was granted bail. It's that quote I wanted from Darville, the specific quote referencing the government's behavior. Justice Bo Darville said, even compared to other infamous cases of inhumane treatment for those falsely detained, Mr. Sewell's treatment was the, quote, absolute worst of the worst, close quotes. Quote, moreover, the authorities have yet to apologize or to assist him in his plight, close quotes, she wrote. By comparison, Atane Takitota, a man who came to the country from Japan in 1992 and was detained in prison for 8 years, was awarded more than $1 million for his situation, the previous record for such cases. Douglas Ngumi, a Kenyan man who was unlawfully detained at the detention center for 6.5 years, was awarded $750,950. Joseph Ameher, a Ghanaian man who was falsely imprisoned for nearly 7 years, was awarded $751,900. I just want to stick a pin there. That's not enough money.
But, and one must also appreciate, I'm not saying that this happened, that Bahamians naturally will defend our system, right? It can't be that we want to give out $1 million easily,
Yeah.
right? Even though we might say, man, that it calls for more money.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that this happened that the judges said, man, we're not going to award more money because it's the Bahamas. But I would understand if Bahamians say, man, about $1 million plus, that's too much money to be given foreigners. I can understand.
No, it's right. I can understand Bahamians saying, look, $1 million plus, Bahamians need the money desperately. Both things could be true at the same time, that these awards are grievously too low and the resources could be spent helping Bahamians. The response is to not award appropriately. The response is to demand that your state actors are held to account.
Which we are not seeing or not publicly seeing to ease my... You know how many names you called just now? That's what,
Yeah.
6 names. I appreciate the Tribunes.
Yeah, 4. The
4?
Japanese, Kenyan, Ghanaian, and then we're referencing the Jamaican man.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the Jamaican man or a different Jamaican man? There's two Africans, one Japanese, now the Jamaican.
And Sewell is the Jamaican man
Okay.
in the story.
Right? When you start stacking these cases up again and again and again, and there's cases pending,
And we
need to be concerned.
and these are cases that have gone through the court. This is public record. What about the matters that have been settled? And then here's the question. Are you making people sign NDAs? Are you making them sign non-disclosure documents when they are receiving a settlement, when they decide to settle, withdraw from the courts and allow the government to settle with them? Are you all causing these people to not disclose at the risk of losing the settlement?
Or are you saying that the media needs to go and investigate and ask them questions? How was your stay in prison? I'm not sure if you understand that the Jamaican, the young boy, the young man, he's man now, said that they raped him in jail.
Oh, no, I understand that.
That someone slapped him and take it in jail. He come there as an innocent young boy and they raped him in jail.
Yes. And here's the problem. The problem is, while you are a prisoner, while you are incarcerated, whether you are on remand or you are serving your sentence, the state has a duty of care to protect you from other prisoners. The state has a duty of care to protect you from rogue prison officers, from rogue police officers, from rogue defense force officers, from rogue nurses and doctors working in the system. The state has a duty of care to protect you. It's not a matter of, oh, well, if you wanted to be safe, you wouldn't be in prison. Their job is to keep you safe while you're in prison.
I'm going to the phone line here, but I'm going to beat you. These gentlemen spending 4, 5, 6 years in prison, right? Duly, unjustifiably incarcerated, right? And they're getting less than $2 million. We have politicians who settle and get umpteenth $1 million. You start wondering whether this is fair and balanced. You start questioning. Let's go to the callers there, Aaron. Go ahead, caller. Can you hear me?
Good morning, Ms. Green and Ms. Newry. That's a very important question you asked, Mr. Newry. Also, I'd like to compliment Ms. Green for defending the narratives posed by the texter about Bahamians being compensated, and versus what you said. But the thing is, the asterisk for me, or the emphasis should be, right? You listening?
Yes, sir.
For someone who's twice, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to say nothing else. But what I'm saying is, what you need to realize, the emphasis should be on the officer and the prisoner, because he was young and is naive. He didn't remember the officer's number or name or nothing. The emphasis should be on the imbecilic officer who told the guy that he would rot in jail. You see, this for me, as somebody who has went through the injustice system, highlights the personal pettiness that goes on within these police stations that you guys don't know about. Whether it be simply not allowing a prisoner to use the restroom, which shows you, highlights the problem that a restroom should be in the cell itself. Nature calls you, you have to call someone. So you all guys don't understand the imbecility behind all of these injustices that will reach a boiling point at some point in time. But because the status quo and the haughty and the whatever, they sit up in their pedestals and discuss all kind of, anyhow, jump, bless.
Blessings. One day we'll have a return to reality. Right now we're stuck with a return to idealism. We're going to a break, and when we get back from the break, we're going to read through the text line.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And also we may transition, but this is important for us to hash out, that the listening audience is able to hear what is happening, and that we have new policies and procedures put in place to correct it. We can't, 5 years from now, we have more people being arrested and detained without a trial, being locked up for 10 years, being molested.
Whether they're nationals or non-nationals, each case is equally important.
At least nationals have people here who will fight for them. Imagine being
Right.
18 and have no family here,
And right in a foreign land.
in foreign land.
And then imagine you don't speak the language.
Oh gosh, that's what the Japanese gone through.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll be right back. Guardian Radio AM, CA Newry, Aaron Green. We'll be right back.
Bahamas, San Bear wants you to join us as we celebrate our amazing Bahamian athletes as they head to Paris for the 2024 Olympic Games. As a truly Bahamian company, we're cheering loud and proud for our incredible team. Join us this summer as we raise a toast to their hard work and dedication as they proudly represent our flag, our country, our peer, our athletes. Here's to bringing home the gold. Good luck, Team Bahamas. Sans Beer, truly Bahamian. Drink responsibly.
Attention, all fall 2024 applicants to University of the Bahamas. The new academic year is fast approaching and we're thrilled to welcome you to UB. But first, we need your help. If you've started your online application, now is the time to submit all outstanding supporting documents. Make sure to send in your transcripts and copies of relevant passport pages urgently. To secure your acceptance to UB, your application must be fully processed. And remember to keep checking your emails for important updates and reminders. Orientation and advisement for new students kicks off on Wednesday, August 7th, and classes begin Monday, August 19th. This message is brought to you by the Office of Recruitment and Admissions at University of the Bahamas.
Love the show? Want to give your support? Become a sponsor today. Call 302-2300 for our rates and packages. That's 302-2300. Become a sponsor on Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. Fresh news, smart talk, all day.
You try to rest, but roll with the best. For all your printing needs, there ain't no one better, no. For posters and banners, magazines and flyers, for window decals, greeting cards and newsletters. No job too big and there's no job too small. You name it, we can print it. Just give us a call. Let Print Masters bring your masterpiece to life.
Located in the Nassau Guardian Building, telephone 302-2361.
Well, welcome back to Guardian Radio AM. We have a number of texts, but before I move to the texts, I find that we in the Bahamas seem to have a different way of dealing with Bahamians who are considered problematic, right? We see, I was going to get trapsy, but I didn't even go there. My point is how we deal with Bahamians and versus how we deal with these foreign black nationals living here. It's clearly different, starkly different, right? In the Bahamas, if you get arrested, your family come on your defense and say, hey, this is unfair. They employ whatever resources they have. But clearly, when you are a foreign national living in this country, there are people who are supposed to be under the rule of law, who are supposed to be responsible for enforcing the law, who dismiss all of your rights, all of constitutional rights, and say, man, I don't really care what you say. You're a foreigner, and you're going to jail, and we dismiss you as a human being. And if that is true, if that is a true narrative, we need to correct it. We need to correct it, and someone needs to be held responsible. That and the idea that we having this money being paid out by the public purse, and it's not coming from these various ministries, from their budget, I have a problem with it. Once these police officers who are being accused of breaching people's constitutional rights and it's not coming from their pension plan, I have a problem with it. And this is what the discussion should be about. Go ahead, Aaron. Let's go read some of the text.
Says, great show as usual. No one wants to go to a Cuban prison. Nobody, not even the people in Cuba. Nobody. Nobody wants to go to prison. And people who tell you they want to go to prison, they living in a different reality than we are. Another text, why don't they tell us how much these MPs are awarded after suing the government as well? The amount must be outrageous. I'm still waiting for somebody from the Bar Association to get up and said, listen, don't mind the foolishness the government was talking about confidential settlements. Like, don't mind that at all, because we at the Bar Association know better, and we will, if the AG's office doesn't seek clarity on the law, we will help them clarify it. You can't just be giving out taxpayer money.
We can never know it. It's only been a year now, 2 years. They get their settlements. We can never know how much they got, unless the government change, and if they feel minded to let us know. It's a secret.
They are cases against the police for assault that are long outstanding. What about these cases? Man, Dexter, I don't tell you all plenty times. See, I told you about how I was being stalked for 3 years and the file just kept disappearing from the police station. And then it took me 6 months trying to get an appointment with Hubert Ingram, and then the government changed power. And then I got an appointment with Perry Christie, and I spoke to the commissioner of police, and he told me they're going to deal with it right away. And then several weeks later, 2 police officers came to my house and said, yeah, Batelco says the threat is not sufficient to warrant further investigation. Yeah. Yeah. Batelco told the police that the threat is not sufficient to warrant further investigation, but nobody actually told me what the actual threat was. Yeah. While we're talking about abuses, sorry, this is another text. While we're talking about abuses, let's not forget these happen on the Family Islands too. They have stories of many nights in jail by abusive and vindictive officers. And the distance makes it worse, right? Like the distance from there to Nassau, where all the lawyers are.
So, Claire, we have a chronic problem.
Oh, yeah.
We have a chronic problem. And so who do we appeal to address it?
I guess, like everybody else in this town, you go directly to the Prime Minister.
Like everybody else.
Aaron and Newry, the people who in our house don't like the real Bahamians, you hear what 52 be saying, man. Some of us knows of these things. There was a text here specifically about the Bar Association, but I have lost. Okay, there we go. The Bar Association is useless in this country. They sit back and allow the government to continue to break the law without calling them out. Bahamians need to start suing the government for the many unlawful acts they continue to do. For example, when governments change, the new administration have a habit of sending public civil servants home unlawfully and illegally for no reasons. As you are aware, President has been set the other day when this administration paid out the Commissioner of Police and his deputy an undisclosed amount for being sent home. But let's be very careful here, because in most instances, the people who are quote-unquote sent home when government changes are appointees, right? And the convention is that if you're appointed by a government when that government changes, your appointment is rescinded, right?
And I also want to point out that we need to understand what's the mandate of the Bar Association, right? The Bar Association controls or operates in reference to lawyers, right? Not necessarily what's happening in the broader...
Right,
scope.
but as the primary stakeholders, right, as a collection of legal minds in the country, surely that would be the space that would provide clarity on the law, on policies and procedures and protocols, whether they align with the law.
But the law is adjudicated in the courts, not by the Bar Association.
No, the law is adjudicated, cases are adjudicated in the courts.
And the law is made by Parliament.
Lawyers offer, okay, sir,
opinions.
Don't bait me on this one.
I just said a different opinion.
Lawyers offer opinions, and they can offer opinions in a public domain in a framed, curated, and facilitated
just recently,
discussion
the president
on
of
the
the
law.
Bar Association made commentary about a case for whether this lawyer should be pursued or dismissed.
That's not the type of public commentary I'm talking about.
And the president said, there's no complaint. Make a complaint and they will address it.
That's not what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
What I'm talking about is the Bar Association, right, is a body that provides standards for the legal community in the country.
Yeah.
As a group of legal minds, as a part of the judiciary, would it not be great if the lawyers help to explain the law to the Bahamian public, as opposed to only being willing to interact with the public when they're getting paid?
Well, they aim to make money. They can't be doing. Anyway, go ahead, finish reading.
That's all. Text says we need to get real. A country where common citizens do not own a house, where the government can't afford toilets for they could afford toilets for want to allocate the resources, where the best medical is for the rich, where we depend on so-called drug dealers to collect revenues. I have never heard that assertion. We have a spending policy that is corrupt. No way should get caught up in a case like this. Illegal people here says the law is not for them, so they should not be awarded. Dear texter, I'm going to be honest with you. This is why we need the members of the Bar Association to become more active participants in civil society and create a space to enable Bahamians to learn the law and to be able to understand the law in relation to relevant cases. This text is a perfect example. Even people who enter the country undocumented have rights in the country. Even people who are convicted of crimes have rights in the country. Even people incarcerated at Her Majesty's prison have rights. Okay? Everyone.
Let's go to the caller stadium. Producer Patrick, call it through. Go ahead, caller. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm. Good morning, caller.
Nothing? Caller going once? Okay.
All right, callers, if you're having difficulty with 323-6232, remember you can also call at 325-4316. That's 325-4316. 325-4259, and toll free for the Family Islands, 242-300-5720. Text line 422-4796. That's 422-4796.
So this is why I start that moving forward. Moving forward and recommendations, right? Some people always say we're always complaining, but we're not putting suggestions forward, right? Clearly we have a problem. The people who text
Hold on,
us...
pause. We have been accused of complaining without putting suggestions forward. In this instance, the only suggestion that we could put forward is that the government understand it is obligated to follow the law. I mean, me and you, we are not lawyers. There's no suggestion we need to put forward other than the protocols have been clearly laid out. The rules have been clearly established. The problem is the people who have had authority vested in them think that they are the authority, and to hell with the provisions, whether they're laid out by the Constitution, whether they're laid out by relevant acts, even whether they're laid out by the general orders. There's only one suggestion that we could make, which is you ought to do when you know you ought to do it.
And if they refuse, or if they do not want to acknowledge it, or they don't see it here,
and they don't, and they refuse, they don't want to acknowledge it, and they don't want to pack up and resign and go home, fire them.
Who can fire them? And they're the ones who do the firing.
No, only Brave is the one who does the firing.
Only
Brave does the firing.
He has fired anyone for the information about declaration yet?
No.
Okay.
He hasn't fired anybody. R.M. Bailey, Jim roof collapse. He ain't fired anybody. When they found that the migrants had not been properly processed at the Hilton. Where else? We could go. You want to go on?
We could go on all day. That's my point. I hear what you're saying.
But
I ain't happening, man.
It is our...
So why bring it up?
It is our duty to continuously demand it. That's why we keep bringing it up.
Be about good Prime Minister alone, man. Any more text before I transition? Because
yes.
I want to hash this out properly.
Absolutely.
So I don't have to talk about it again.
What you mean?
No,
of course we have to talk about it.
Other topics
I mean, maybe not today. Yeah. But we have to talk about it again. Blessing CA, I mean, unless you want to wait until you lost or I lost in prison. And then we have to talk about it. I feel Sewell and his lawyers needed to sue for $43 million or more so the Bahamian government and other authorities can really feel the pain and get the picture. Also, these kinds of things need to go to the UN and other world bodies and even be prosecuted in the World Court. This goes for any abuse levied on both foreigners or Bahamians. The government and authorities need to be exposed globally to feel the pain and get the message so they can stop abusing their power.
Wouldn't that be betraying our country? We talk about go to the UN and promote. That's like when the Prime Minister, former Prime Minister name, Hubert Ingram told the immigrants, you all need to sue the government. It sounds similar to that.
Yeah, so I feel in you. I wasn't supposed to talk about the fact that I was being stalked and it was never resolved and I continually get attacked. And I wasn't supposed to talk about that. I was supposed to just die in silence to save the country's image. Okay, no problem. The government and authorities need to be exposed globally to feel the pain and get the message so they can stop abusing their power. Until then, they won't change because they don't rate locals. Another text. Cecil, ease up. Erin is correct in her implication that much more can be done by the Bar Association to advocate for justice for all, not just their clique. As you admitted, though, they into making money. Need an example? Where Mr. We March? Did all his demands for the nation get met, or just those for him?
He had followers, What about the rest of the people who marched with him? We always like blaming singular people, It's all of us, And I understand the critique of the Bar Association. I just saying that that's not their mandate. The mandate, who's supposed to be done? The Bahamian people.
Don't put my name in that.
Don't
put my name in that.
When last you
movie.
go on march? You just marched the other day with them people. Them
With
women.
the women's march?
That women's them. No man marched with them.
Yes, men did march with us, please and thank you.
That's
I'm just
them
gonna.
sometime
I just tell the people you work at nights, and so you couldn't come,
Yeah.
but you was with us in spirit. Don't go there.
I different on. I different on.
Oh, listen, you caused me forget what I was about to row you for. Okay?
You want people march and protest, and I'm saying, hey, Bahamians ain't interested. It's up to us to say stand up and complain
No,
and agitate.
Bahamians were interested.
When?
We marched. And what Bahamians expressed what they felt so let down.
They felt
taken
So they ain't
advantage
marching no more.
by the good sir.
Let's go to the caller, man. Go ahead, caller. Can you hear me?
Hello?
Go ahead. You're live.
Hi. What happened is to Bahamian guys that get locked up and go to prison innocently and...
We waiting on you to lobby for them.
Some time. They already got locked up there, and they went in prison and they got raped, and they got ruined, and they got their direction in life changed, and then they released after a while. Do they get awarded $1 million for the damages that was caused?
We need you to lobby for them on their behalf. Any of those names that you know, call me up and say the names so we can lobby for on their behalf.
Let me tell you then. Let me give you some names
Go
right
ahead,
now.
man. Let me see.
There was a whole bunch of criminals
Go ahead, the name.
who done got killed.
Give me the name. The name.
Boys and girls
the name.
went to prison and they were
the
ruined.
name.
They were ruined.
The name.
Name?
Yeah, name.
Man, that's 1,000.
Name.
That's
The name.
1,000
Just
to
one
them.
name. One name.
One name.
Go ahead.
Okay, you all need to get off the air then.
Okay. I know you had no name. I know it.
See, caller, I was going to tell you that Fred Smith is one lawyer who focuses on human rights breaches of migrants and people of foreign nationality who may or may not have rights in the Bahamas. Status in the Bahamas. He also works with people who the law says are Bahamians, but policy says are not Bahamians. But here's what I would have asked you. How many other lawyers are there in the Bahamas except for Fred Mitchell? Fred Smith. I bet you there are about 2,000. I bet you there are at least 2,000 lawyers besides Fred Smith.
But the question,
any one of those lawyers could take up this matter or support the lawyers and advocates that are taking up this matter. And for a point, if you want to figure out how to support some of these men, David Williams is doing the work of supporting men. And in particular, there's a space for men who have been traumatized while in prison.
See, my point is, a number of Bahamians has labeled Fred Smith as public enemy number one because of his cause. One man, Like you mentioned, we have thousands of lawyers here. We have 400,000 Bahamians here who could lobby on behalf of Bahamians. But because Fred Smith has decided to lobby for one set of people, he has been demonized. And every time you try to say, hey, thank you very much, Fred Smith, for lobbying, there's always someone, but what about us? What about you? The idea is you need to lobby. This is our country. We have a responsibility and duty care to lobby for our own. And if you do not want to find out the Bahamian names, to go to the police station, to make a complaint, to pay your money, to put your shoulders to the wheel, then it is what it is. And I'm just asking the caller, give me one name.
Right.
So we can lobby with you.
And if a Bahamian,
instead of complaining.
If a Bahamian's rights were breached in another country and they were awarded a substantial amount of cash for those breaches, would you support the nationals of that country saying, they're not even from this country, they don't deserve that amount of money? What if it were a Bahamian in another person's country? What would be your response?
Let's go to the caller.
Right, and then one last text.
Go ahead, Corey. Can you hear me? I can hear you in the background, but I can't hear you. You may have to call back quickly on the next line.
Try 325-4316, 325-4259, 242-300-5720. Okay, so quick text. Frederick Smith has been principled and consistent. Our country needs to find a way to honor Mr. Smith, honor him as a national hero. Another text. You mentioned that this was an open line. I just read a story in the newspaper and my head exploded. What is this nonsense from the Minister of Energy? Quote, right now, Pike is here as subcontractors to support some storm readiness work, close quotes. Does the minister know that hurricane season started on June 1st, 2024? It's August. Hurricane preparedness, shouldn't this have started sometime in March and been completed by August? Here's my thing. Why the trucks don't say Bahama Island Grid? Why the stickers don't say Bahama Island Grid? Why they say Pike? So you telling me Bahama Island Grid ain't had no money and they ain't had no trucks?
Let's go to this caller here. Go ahead, Corey. Can you hear us now?
Hello?
Hey, I can hear you now. Go ahead.
Yes, good morning.
Morning.
Let me ask you, that case with that gentleman who just got paid the $2 million, was he allowed a one phone call?
On which network? Which network?
No, I'm asking the guys, who just, what you are talking about this morning.
I don't know.
Well, the details that were revealed in the paper do not state that he asked for his phone call and he was denied it. But guess what? In the Bahamas, I'm not sure if that is a right in the same way it is in the United States.
Why I'm saying this, Aaron Green, even the police officers, someone should use common sense. You said that he was robbed or something, right?
Oh, you're talking about the Japanese man.
The Japanese man said that he was robbed and didn't have his identity documents anymore.
Okay, so couldn't they have gotten his name, make a phone call to his hometown?
They did. They couldn't verify who he was still.
No, but still, if he did give them a phone number, address, and everything where he lives in the U.S. or wherever he was living, just like this last case now.
No, we're talking about the Japanese case with the phone call.
I'm talking about the last case. The last case that the ruling you are talking about.
Right, but listen, in the Sewell case, unknown identity was not ever in. Identity was never in question. Those details are specific to the Japanese case. In this instance, he was not detained because they didn't know who he was. Those details, those particulars never arose in this matter.
Okay. Because, I want you all to do a search. Find out how many wrongfully locked up teens and how much money was paid out. That would be a good, interesting thing to find out.
You know, it would be a good, interesting thing to find out. What was the expenditure for the 50th Golden Jubilee Independence celebrations?
We ain't gonna never find that out.
Well, if you can't, that's true. You might never get it. It's hard to say.
There are all of these requests for us to access the information, and you're right. The conversation would be fuller if we could access the information. We have successive governments who refuse to fully operationalize the Freedom of Information Act and the Information Commissioner's Office.
Let's see if we can squeeze this caller into.
There you go.
Okay, go ahead, Corey. You can hear me? Call going once.
Again, if you're having difficulty calling, you can call at 325-4316 and 325-4259. We even had the minister responsible for foreign affairs talk in his capacity as chairman, talking about you got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them. In his capacity as minister, talking about we ain't into no Freedom of Information Act or Procurement Act.
It's 12 o'clock, Eric. Anyway, this Guardian Radio AM with CA Newry. Have a wonderful day.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, Nassau, Bahamas.